To begin, I wanted to know how many students knew of Wake's emergency plan. I asked a series of freshmen, does Wake Forest have an emergency plan, and if so, what is it and how does it work?
I didn't really know we had one until you told me, so yeah.
I'm not sure.
I would assume so, but I have no idea.
I don't know.
We do, yes. Specifically for fires, I know.
Absolutely.
What is it?
Well, it depends on the emergency. So we have a crisis management team that's a university-wide group, and that's I'm on that group, and there are several basically representatives from various departments within the university who are tasked with really responding to any major emergency that could befall the university, and that crisis management team is tasked with, again, developing a response and coordinating logistics and planning how we maintain services to the campus, or if we can't maintain services to the campus, what do we do in the interim with employees, with students, and what have you. So that's from like a crisis standpoint. Your question as far as emergencies might be a little bit different in the sense that maybe a smaller scale emergency that doesn't rise to the level of a crisis. Certainly individual departments have emergency plans and things of that nature. University police, facilities and campus services, those areas certainly have kind of emergency plans. Those might again be employed for a smaller scale crisis.
Most of the students don't know about any kind of disaster plan that Wake has in place other than the fire evacuation routes that they see posted in their hallways. Isn't one of the top reasons for having an emergency plan to provide the safety of the students? The students are depending on previous knowledge learned about what to do in the case of a disaster since they are not well informed since coming to college. One of the biggest questions is, how will we know if our safety is threatened by a disaster on campus?
Texting is one of the things. I know that I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night with like a storm warning or a tornado warning through texting. I think that the RAs would be the ones who, if there was a serious disaster, would make sure that all of their residents would be safe and downstairs.
What we do as far as preparation and what we do for students, we do train RAs on how they can respond to natural disasters. Typically our training is pretty limited because what we usually inform students is that they should essentially pay attention to the speakers, the audible speakers. I think it has a special name. I just don't know what they're called. But the system MIR3 is what it's called. It just came to me. But that system, the speaker system, the text alerts, the website Wake Alert, if there's any disaster that we can predict or we can with a reasonable, sense of confidence predict that something could happen. So if there's like a tornado advisory or warning, then we will communicate to students that they should know that that's coming and should listen for the audible alerts and be ready for the text alerts that come across the MIR3 system that University Police will control.
There is actually a communications website called Wake Ready, which contains all of the emergency preparedness information for Wake Forest University. The only problem is, if you wanted to find this on your own, it is quite difficult if you do not know the exact terms to search for. Either way, this system is what informs the students of any disaster on campus, or nearby. There's a Twitter page you can follow for updates, but also every undergraduate student is required to have their phone number stored in their database so that in the event of an emergency, a text message notification will be sent out. There was a test of the system on November 21st to ensure that everything was working properly. Even though all of these procedures and details are in place, they do not do the community any good because the students do not know that they are there. The website could only be found after searching the exact terms Wake Ready. The name was chosen to be remembered easily, but it can only be remembered if one has heard it first.
So, I mean, it's voluntary. That's the hard part. So students don't have to sign up for the text alerts. Employees don't have to sign up for the text alerts. I certainly would recommend that students and employees sign up for those because it's just another way to get important, accurate, and up-to-date information about any disaster. You know, if it's weather related, if it's an environmental disaster like a chemical spill or something like that, and in one of the science buildings, you know, to be able to have accurate information is really important, and that's so I would encourage people to. I wish I could make it mandatory, I guess, if I could change one thing, because that's one of the harder parts about a crisis is managing the communication.
I would improve the communications of the plan. Not how a disaster is broadcasted to the students, but how and when students are informed and taught what to do in the case of a disaster. All of the freshmen interviewed have been here for almost 4 months now and had no idea that any of the safety measures in place even existed. When asked what they would do in the case of a tornado, for instance, many said stay in their rooms and wait for an RA to tell them what to do, when really they should go to the basement and find a windowless room to seek shelter in. With the lack of knowledge the students have, lives are at risk, and the safety measures put into place by this plan are all for naught.